Good morning. I am Terrence Wall. Thank you very much for joining us at the video podcast, live streaming podcast through the Monmouth Regional Chamber of Commerce. I want to thank everyone for being here today. Today we're going big. You know, who would have thought? If you listen very closely to the 1978 Nobel Prize speech, he does mention about starting big, the Big Bang Cafe right here in Bellworks. If you listen really close, right, Dr. Wilson? No. So we're here today to learn tremendous information about the universe. Oftentimes a word that you think of somewhat lightly, the universe, where we stand, where things are going. When we look up into the night sky, either by ourselves or with our children and seeing what's out there. But it's what's beyond. And learning a little bit about our history, particularly as it relates here in Holmdel with Crawford Hill and the famous horn antenna. We also have, I'm thankful, we have a couple of committee men that are here today, Rocco Impreveduto and Brian Foster from Holmdel, that are here to continue to learn. They are active on the Township Committee, looking at many different options of the future of Crawford Hill, including, of course, the preservation of the site and all the different items that relate to that there. So with that, I'd like to thank Gelman Images, and if the Chamber would like to say a few words on behalf of our sponsor, thanking them for their support for today.
Yes, thank you so much. Welcome, everybody. It's so nice to see such a big crowd. Welcome to the retirees that are here. What a wonderful event to reunite all of you. My name is Therese Rolke. I'm the Executive Director of the Monmouth Regional Chamber of Commerce. And on behalf of Gary Gelman and Gelman Images, he couldn't be here today, so I asked him to send me a little something that I could read on his behalf. Oops, now where did it go? Here it is. My apologies for not being with you this morning. I have been called to Newark for a photographic shoot with Frankie Valli and the New Jersey Hall of Fame. So I thought that was pretty cool. Obviously, if it wasn't for that, he'd be here himself. Thank you for coming out this morning to see this wonderful presentation by Drs. Wilson and Kanwal. For almost 34 years, Gelman Images has been a full-service photography, video production, and drone service provider. Marketing productions, social media content, as well as high-quality executive portraits are just a few of the services Gelman Images provides. Our clients include large to mid-sized biz companies throughout New Jersey and the tri-state region. Please check out our website at www.gelmanimages.com to learn more about us and reach out when our services are needed for you and or your firm. Enjoy the presentation, and I hope you have a wonderful day. So thank you, Gary.
Thank you very much. So I'm pleased to welcome Dr. Robert Wilson. He's an American radio astronomer and physicist who, along with Arnio Penzias, received the 1978 Nobel Prize in Physics for his discovery of cosmic microwave background radiation. His discovery advanced the Big Bang model of creation. And if you go outside right now and you're outside, hold your hands up, photons from that historic radiation, right, will course through your system.
Yeah, Bob just reminded us that here in this building, we have a cage around us, and that's actually preventing the photons from hitting us. But the moment you step outside, they're right there, and you're bathed in them.
Yes.
But fortunately, you're not a sensitive microwave detector, so you won't notice it.
Yes. And if I don't do a good job here today, gamma radiation is something I'm going to learn about on the way out to the parking lot, I think. So, before receiving the Nobel Prize in Physics, Dr. Wilson in 1977 was also awarded the Henry Draper Medal by the United States National Academy of Sciences. It was in 1963 that Dr. Wilson joined Bell Laboratories after earning his doctorate in astrophysics in 1962 from the California Institute of Technology, a school both of you attended, am I right?
That's what we have in common.
It's so interesting. In 1976, Dr. Wilson became the head of the Bell Labs Radio Physics Research Department and continued with the organization for 18 more years. In 1980, he was made a member of the U.S. Academy of Science. In 1994, he decided to take up the appointment of senior scientist at Harvard-Smithsonian Center of Astrophysics, located in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And today, Robert and his wife live in Holmdel, where they raise their children. So welcome, Dr. Wilson. Thank you so much for being here today. I also want to welcome and thank Dr. Sarbmeet Kanwal for being with us. And I first saw Dr. Kanwal at a Township Committee meeting speaking so eloquently about the horn antenna and our sense of place. Folks approach things from many different paths, science, technology, also from a non-scientific pathway, our spiritual sense, our sense of place, whether folks are religious or non-religious. Where do we fit in this grand universe? There's a time when we felt, I believe that it's really just us and our planet and that kind of thing. And now it seems ever more so that it's almost silly to think that we are it. When I was just speaking to a gentleman who's telling me that there are billions of galaxies and trillions of stars. So where does that all end and where does that begin? And much smarter people are hopefully going to touch on that today. Dr. Sarbmeet Kanwal teaches quantum physics and astronomy at Brookdale Community College and is a recipient of their Outstanding Instructor of the Year Award. He holds a PhD in theoretical physics from the California Institute of Technology. Sarbmeet is a frequent public speaker on public topics in science and has authored a TEDx talk titled Chaos to Cosmos. So really today is not about the ripples in the pond, it's the ripples in the cosmos. There's really so much more out there. And if we can scratch just the tiny surface of it today, we'll have benefited greatly from these two wonderful gentlemen. He also speaks and writes on topics that lie at the intersection of science and spirituality and how they dovetail together as we try to make sense of this world and the vastness of this world and our universe. Sarbmeet is a follower of the Sikh religion and a longtime board member of the Monmouth Center for World Religions and Ethical Thought, where he helped initiate several interfaith projects, including the founding of an award-winning youth leadership program called Mosaic, which stands for Mobilizing Our Students for Action to Build Interfaith Community. And folks, let's have a round of applause for the students and the children, the future that are here today. Thank you so much for you being here as well. Because really, if it's not about the next generation, what is it? So more recently, he's been assisted, Dr. Kanwal, in teaching courses at Deep Time, an organization that believes that understanding the cosmic story of our evolution is foundational to solving the current world that humanity is facing and what a current world we are facing today. Sarbmeet hopes that scientific revelations about our origin can bring some healing and harmony to a deeply fractured world. Thank you so much for being here as well.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. So, a topic that has been very present on the minds of many is the future of Crawford Hill and the Horn antenna. And for many folks, they're anecdotally familiar with it, but they're not quite clear on what it is and what the origins are and that sort of thing. And that's why we have many guests here that are visiting that want to learn about that. So if we can briefly go around the room, and Jeannie, so folks can introduce themselves, and we'll go around the room very quickly. If you don't want to introduce yourself, that's okay too, but this also helps our guests understand who's with us today. Go ahead, Jeannie.
Right, and we often do the elevator pitch, but today we're not because we want to move through this quickly. So if you just want to give your name and if you're with an organization or if you live in, whatever quick message you'd like to give, like what business you're from.
Kendra with the Deep Time Network.
Oh, thank you.
Jim Harbison, a former Bell Labs alumna.
Thank you. Nice and loud, please.
Robbie Cohen, former Bell Labs.
Harvey Cohn, 45 years at Bell Labs.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Isabel Murata. I'm a junior at Holmdel High School.
Hi, I'm Elliot Cohen, a business education teacher and internship coordinator at Holmdel High School, and I want to thank the Wall family and the Chamber for having us each month, where we have over 24 students now next year going out in the field all over Monmouth County.
Hi, Al Aloisi, your independent insurance broker, tennis pro, pianist.
Phyllis Rosser, neighbor in Bellworks.
I belong to her.
Oh, beautiful eyes over here.
Thank you for being here.
Yes, and we know Therese
Yep.
is the executive director of the Monmouth Regional Chamber of Commerce.
Mm-hmm.
Kathleen Hoffman, administrative assistant for the Monmouth Regional Chamber of Commerce.
Eric Ober, 50-year retiree from Bell Labs.
Bob Mirsky, retired Bell Labs, AT&T, and I do STEM talks for grammar schools now, and this is wonderful.
Oh, that's great.
Gilda Healy, Healy Brokerage, from Niagara Falls to the shores of Cape May. We've got you covered.
Good morning, Carrie Kuskowski with The Connection, Inc.
Hi, Michelle Teitelbaum, just a happy mom to learn.
Wonderful, thank you.
Kristen Sussman, also just excited mom to be here listening to this wonderful speech.
37 years at Bell Labs and AT&T Labs.
Howard Stein, Home Helpers, Home Care.
Good morning, Tara Demyanovich, Holmdel resident, born and raised, and Vice President of the Monmouth Regional Chamber of Commerce.
Sherilyn Prozomsky, HR Consulting.
Mike Manzik, New Jersey Natural Gas Company, and I come for the free coffee. Thank you.
And author. Thank you.
Gary McAllister, former network certification test engineer for AT&T.
Good morning, everyone. Carolyn Burtnick, Monmouth County Tourism.
Charlotte Wall, I go to SAT school in Holmdel.
Yes, Charlotte's an 8th grader.
Maria Wall, SAT school, Holmdel. Teddy Wall, Indian Hill School, Holmdel.
Yes, these are 3 of my children, so they're here today for National Take Your Child to Work Day. So,
I'm Middletown resident for 40 years and just very interested.
same, he said. Oh, my neighbor.
Hi, my name is Juan Vega. I'm a Holmdel resident. I'm happy to be here to learn about all things that we have here in Holmdel as well. And thank you.
Thank you.
Robert Linker, Solutions Health and Pregnancy Center.
Michael Murdoch, Holmdel resident and investment banker, working from home today.
Dan Gilman from Jersey City, big fan of Dr. Robert Wilson.
Paul Thurston, Holmdel resident and owner of T Marketing.
Thank you. Thank you.
Chris Bogle, retired Verizon Wireless, currently a concierge here in the building.
Miriam Baresh, my financial advisor in the area.
Holmdel resident, 26 years, and also a member of the Holmdel Historical Society.
Michelle Donnelly, Holmdel resident, and worked at Bell Labs here.
Hi, I'm Steve Adams. I spent about 35 years in this building and still work for AT&T.
Peter Maneri, lifelong resident of Holmdel, involved with the Holmdel Historical Society. That's this great group right here, and we're here to support these 2 gentlemen and
and also part of the green team of Holmdel and Betsy Wilson are in part of, and I just enjoy it thoroughly. Joseph Foster goes into space and exploration.
And my brother worked on the same team as Alvin.
Betsy. Director of Community College.
John McCarty, Home Historical Society.
4-year Holmdel resident and now Bell Labs retiree.
Chongyin Liu, Holmdel Heritage Committee Chairperson. I'm also president of Shore Music Educator Association. I'm also Liu Music director in Home. I'm not.
iPad here if anyone wants to sign the petition.
Kanwal. Betsy, can you raise your hand? Betsy and I are better halves of the speakers of the day.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
Hi, good morning. Valerie McLaughlin, Holmdel resident.
Rick Siciliano, contributor to the historical book on Oceanport and Fort Monmouth.
Mike and Joan Krett, local residents. We Bell Labs. Joan has a local company called Memory Keepers, and I'm Al's tennis partner.
Betsy Siciliano, 41 years at CBS Broadcasting, now retired.
Pauline Haller, Middletown resident.
Mike Rockwork, retired Bell Labs and Holmdel resident.
Nick Haller, antenna engineer.
Victor Lawrence, retired Bell Labs and Holmdel resident.
Thank you. Did I get everybody? Did I miss anyone?
Tom Zapsik, photographer extraordinaire.
Do you want everyone to look up at you right now? If everyone can look up at Tom. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm Jeannie Wall. I'm owner of Tap Into for Holmdel, Colts Neck, Middletown, Hazlitt, Keyport. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Tom. Tom is making sure we are all photon ready here, and I think we. So I'm Terrence Wall, lifelong resident of Holmdel by way of background. Served 9 years on the township committee. Served on the Holmdel First Squad with Steve back there. That was some fond memories. And currently serve as an elected board member of the Holmdel Board of Education. So it's great to see the time and talent that's in the room today. Listen, let's dive right into it. Right. Part of the goal today is also to help illuminate and educate folks so they know what some key goals are as it relates to preserving history, the Crawford Hill, and the Horn Antenna. But the question then quickly becomes, for some, well, what exactly is it, and how did it come about? So if we can start right there, and perhaps, Dr. Wilson, what was the original purpose of the Horn Antenna as well?
The Horn was built for the ECHO project. The background of that is in 1957, the Russians launched Sputnik. Bell Labs had been thinking about communication satellites, but that really indicated that this was going to be possible. The next year, NASA proposed putting up the ECHO balloon, which was a 100-foot diameter metallized mylar balloon. Think of a very large part balloon. It would go up in orbit, and if there was some residual atmosphere there, it would this thing had a huge area. It would feel the force very strongly. It had very low mass, so it would be easy to see if something was affecting it. That was NASA's point of view. Bell Labs wanted to jump into communication satellites, but in their usual way, they wanted to do it a bit at a time. Instead of putting a whole very complicated system together, they would use this and given that this was a sphere, if you think of a wave going up and hitting it, it bounces in all directions, and so the amount that hit the ground in any one place is very weak. So they were going to use two Bell Labs inventions: a very low noise amplifier, a traveling wave emitter, and if they had put on an ordinary antenna, the ground pickup around it would have over the noise of the measure. So they used a horn reflector, which is very shielded from the ground, almost lit up. The next day, there's actually a two-way combination. So a horn reflector was part of the first communication satellite experiment, and that's what it was built for.
And was that anticipated, or what are some of the unanticipated developments, also known as a tale of two pigeons? Right?
Oh, well, that comes a little later on.
Okay. So was that anticipated, and what evolved from that point?
Well, Bell Labs the back of that, you may go up the Jansky Memorial over here.
The Jansky Memorial. Yeah.
Yeah, Carl Jansky had covered, if that's the right word, radio astronomy in the 30s, but they hadn't done much for it. It was a time of the grindstone doing communication work. But they had built this antenna. They were going to go into communication satellites, and they thought that radio astronomers, knowing about large antennas, signals through the atmosphere and other things, would be very useful for communication satellites. Doing radio astronomy, amusing ourselves, and the other half we would do communications work. So the horn reflector was used with echo. A couple of years later, the Telstar satellite, a really useful satellite, was put up, and the horn reflector had a new maser that was modified for Telstar. And it was really had a backup role. After that, turned it over to us to radio astronomy. The first one being that it's very well shielded from the ground and picks up almost no radiation from the ground. When radio astronomers make a measurement, normally they look up at some source and measure that, and then they look side and take the difference, because that subtracts out all of the extra radiation coming into their antenna. The other thing they do is they look at a standard source. How bright that is without reference to any other sky. It also was small enough we could calibrate its gain very well, and we could say how bright several radio sources were. This would be useful for radio astronomers. It would also be useful for communication satellites. If you buy a new Earth station, you point to this source, Cassiopeia A, and see what the signal-to-noise ratio is. And if the manufacturer did the job right, it comes out right. If he didn't, you don't get as good a signal-to-noise ratio. So those were two of the things that we had in mind doing.
You know, a question for you. As a data-driven scientist, you're going through the data and you're going through your experiments and these kinds of things. Did you recall ever stepping back and looking at it from a perspective of the importance, the social importance, the generational import of what you were doing, that different, the non-scientific side?
Well, at this point in my description, we were doing things really aimed at astronomers. We were doing sort of service things. What happened was we built a very good measuring system to put on the horn reflector. And when we did, what we discovered was that there was more power coming out of it. It was seeing more radiation than we expected by something like a factor of 2. A similar idea, a similar measurement had been made before, but without enough accuracy. We had a comparison with a liquid helium source and the antenna was clearly too hot. So one of the things we wanted to do, which was measure the radiation of a cold part of the sky, was going to be impossible, because what we were seeing was much more than it could possibly be. Well, By this point, we had started making the measurement of the gain of the antenna and trying to understand its sensitivity. So we spent about 9 months understanding our system, calibrating it in several ways, and making the measurement of Cas-A and several other sources. During that time, every time we pointed at blank sky, we saw this extra 3 degrees of radiation. We just couldn't figure out what it was in our system. It had to be some problem with our system. I mean, no one expected anything out there in the sky, or we didn't. And there were a whole series of things we thought about. You mentioned the pigeons. There was a pair of pigeons who lived up in the antenna. They came all the way up to near the cab, where it was cooled in the summer, and heated in the winter. It was a lovely place to live. About once a week, these two crazy guys came up, drove the thing all around. The pigeons would fly off, but when we got done, turned it back down, they'd go back up there. And of course, they deposited that white stuff that you're used to seeing on statues. And we didn't think, well, we thought that might have some effect, so we got up there and cleaned it out. Didn't have much effect. We worried about New York City, but we had the perfect thing. We pointed our antenna at New York City and didn't see any significant extra radiation. We had eliminated almost everything we could think of when we got put in touch with a group at Princeton led by Robert Dicke. Robert Dicke was a wonderful physicist who during the Second World War worked on radar receivers, microwave receivers. So he understood physics and he understood microwave radiation. After the war, he started thinking about gravity theory, wanted to add an extra term to general relativity, something called the Brans-Dicke theory. And he was thinking of things that might make a difference, that he might look for some effect that would require this extra term. And one of the things he thought about was an oscillating Big Bang universe, where the universe expands, and because of gravity, it comes back and there's a big crunch, and then it expands again. And he said, when it comes to a big crunch, it has to get extremely hot. So it's going to be full of radiation. As it expands, the radiation will cool off, just as when you expand air in something, it cools off. And so he realized that it would be microwave radiation now. He got 2 very good postdocs at Princeton. He asked Jim Peebles to calculate what this might be. He asked Dave Wilkinson to make a measuring system to look for it. And they were working along. Jim Peebles finished his calculation well before Dave Wilkinson was ready to measure, because it's, from my point of view as an experimentalist, it's easier to write a paper than to make a sensitive instrument. Anyway, he was asked to give a talk at Johns Hopkins. He asked the others, would it be all right if I talk about my calculations? And they said, sure. We're so far ahead, no one could catch up with us. So he went off and talked, and through a sequence of people, we were told about this. So Arno called up Dicke. They were having a bag lunch, as they did once or twice a week. They were discussing the experiment and their calculations, what they were doing. The phone rang. Dicke picked up the phone. They heard things like atmospheric radiation, sky brightness, antenna temperature. All the things really pricked up. At the end of the conversation, Dicke put the phone back down and said, boys, we've been scooped.
That's a great story. And while you're working and doing your work, there are also folks that are beginning to take notice and to watch and to learn and to become more interested, including a New York Times reporter, correct? They reached out to you, and did you start seeing the impact from that story and how it was really it was breaking through the science community to the world community at that time?
Well, we invited the Dickey group over. They came, looked at what we had, agreed we'd done what we said we'd done, and we wrote 2 separate papers. I think on both sides, we thought that our result may be right even if the other one isn't. So we wrote 2 separate papers that were published back to back in Astrophysical Journal letters and sent them off. And a year after our first measurement, Walter Sullivan, the chief science reporter at the New York Times, called up. We happened to be up in the cab of the antenna. This was the Bell system. There was a wired telephone in the cab of the antenna. And so picked up the phone. It was Walter Sullivan asking questions about our experiment. He seemed to know quite a bit about it. And so we talked a while, and that was over. Later that day, my father came for a visit. Remember, I was just out of graduate school. My father came for a visit from Houston. We had his 2 grandchildren, and he had business in Hightstown the next day. So, we spent the evening. Next morning, got up. Betsy and I were making breakfast. He walked down to Holmdel Village drugstore, bought a New York Times, came back. On the front page of the New York Times was a picture of our antenna and a long article about the Big Bang and our measurement and the Princeton people's theory about it.
That's something else. Now, and folks have been studying and teaching, like Dr. Kanwal in his work, and being at a township committee meeting recently, talked about this location, and maybe this is to your surprise, or maybe it's no surprise to you, Dr. Wilson, that folks consider this of such significance, even being in a sacred place. Dr. Kanwal, in your work, in your studies, and educating the next generation, what can you dial into that presence you had at the committee level, and what you think is bringing folks out to urge them to complete the question and make it a sentence and an exclamation point that this site is preserved. Can you share your views from your background?
I'd be very happy to do that.
Thank you, Dr. Wilson, for that primer.
Is this mic working? Yeah. Yes. Okay. So first of all, I just want to say what an amazing story it is that Bob just told us. I've heard this story tens of times, if not more than that, and every time I learned something new. And hearing it from Bob himself is such a treat, absolutely. So when I first heard the story, I was a youth studying physics. And what occurred to me is that this story has a significance that goes beyond just the science of it. I've always been intrigued with how science can tell us more about ourselves, about where we come from, about how we ought to be leading our lives. So this was a story that really struck me and came to me as the possibility of having that kind of an impact that goes beyond science. And ever since then, I've been trying to look at it to see what it might have to say about who we are, where we are, what we come from, where we come from. So the one amazing thing about this story is that it made us aware of another story, and that is the story of how we came to be here. The most amazing part is that every single thing in the universe, all the stars, all the galaxies, all the planets, and us human beings, every particle in those things came from one single source. And that was what some people call the fireball, the thing that we refer to as the Big Bang. Every single particle that exists in the universe today was in that fireball on the day it exploded, if you want to call us that. So here we have a depiction of our source, where we come from. And what that historic day let us know in 1964, with Bob and Arno doing the work for us, what it let us know is that the light from that source, from where we all came, is something that is being communicated to us every single moment. And as Clarence was saying, if you step out of this building, you are going to be bathed in that radiation that is coming from our source. To me, that is a significant thing. We are being connected to the source every moment, and we were not even aware of it. But what really opened my eyes to the fact that there is so much more here for us to learn from is the story of what happened after the Big Bang as the universe evolved over 14 billion years to get to the point where you and me are sitting in this room and listening to this story. Now, I don't have time here to tell you the story of how we came here, but I will tell you that if once you immerse yourself in that story, which I did, what you find out is that those galaxies out there, I'm sure you've seen pictures from the Hubble, and now you're seeing pictures from the Webb telescope about them. Those beautiful spiral arms that are cartwheeling out there, why are they doing it? They're doing it so that they are able to give birth to stars. And the way that they give birth to stars is that they use the debris from stars that are already dead, and those spiral arms compress the gas and make new stars out of them. In that process, they're creating star dust, which is really the elements that are created in the core of each star. Over billions of years, the amount of star dust gets to a point where the next time a new star is created, it comes along with a whole bevy of planets going around it. This is exactly how our own solar system was created. Some of those planets happen to be in just the right place so that they can have the kind of conditions on them so that they can give rise to life. In fact, life actually is generated through a process of cooking in the core of each planet where the organic molecules are formed. They come out as eruptions from the volcanoes, and over a piece of time, given our oceans and the liquid water, life can actually take birth. So this story, for me, when you behold it, is something that makes your jaw drop. It is something that sweeps you off the floor. It tells you that you were not put into this universe, you actually grew out of it in the same way that an apple grows out of an apple tree. So we have a sense of belonging to a universe that cannot be conceived of unless you know the story of how we came to be here. For me, that's a sacred story. And the place where that story, that we first became aware of it, is a place that we need to respect, revere, and preserve.
Thank you so much for that. You know, 1978 was a couple of years ago, right? Now we're in 2023. There's been tremendous conversation about what was discovered and how it was developed. Very interested in what your thoughts are here in 2023. What's the next big thing? What do you see out there? And what would you share with the students or Robert Wilson when he was first fixing those radios many years ago and getting them working and learning about those? What would you say to that generation? And what do you see moving forward? That would be incredibly interesting to all of us here today.
Well, one thing that I have said many times to students is that if you do an experiment and it seems to be going wrong, don't just give up. Get to the point where you understand it. It's not just our story. We didn't give up, so we ended up discovering something important. But I've heard many other stories like that. Science doesn't go in a straight line it branches when new things are found, and finding the new things is very important. As for what advice I would have given myself, I think I stumbled into a wonderful set of circumstances by following things I was interested in. They happen to be the sort of thing that one can actually get a job doing, or at least at that time I could.
And are you impressed by the level of support folks have for the work and the history, and also dialing back to the particular site, and it's in this this state of lack of permanence as far as preservation? Are you surprised by the incredible support that you're receiving, and also why are the key reasons? What are the key reasons for the stakeholders, whether it's the Holmdel Township Committee, the freeholders, state folks, federal folks? We have Congressman Kim's office here. Thank you. Applied for a $4 million piece of funding through the government. What are the key reasons to preserve, and are you impressed with all the support for that?
Yes, I'm very impressed with all the support we've had. I think, well, it's an artifact. It's like going to Edison's place or something. It's where something was discovered. And people like to be able to do that. It makes them think about what happened then, and maybe similar sort of things that may happen in the future. You asked about what's the next big thing. I don't really know. I hope it comes out of left field somewhere. But the more obvious big thing is that from the cosmic microwave background, we have a picture of the universe at 380,000 years old, very early. From present telescopes, we look back not quite that far. There is a region in between that astronomers sometimes call the Dark Ages. And the James Webb Telescope is pushing us back into that, and seem to be discovering some things that don't quite fit with people's extrapolation. And that I take as a very good thing. I'm hoping that we'll learn more about the process of turning that very early Big Bang into the present universe from observations like the JWST and several other telescopes that are going to come online.
I have a question for both of you. Has any of the data informed the age-old question of, are we the only folks here in our microcosm of a planet, or has there been whether the amount of planets or galaxies that are out there, and this is obviously as very much a layperson, has that question opened up any further, where it's either silly to think that we are alone, or that we're quite not in some fashion? Do you have any input on that? One of those age-old questions that many folks have about our existence in here, in our place in the universe.
Okay, given billions of stars in our galaxy and billions of other galaxies, and the fact that almost every star has planets around it, I think it's impossible that there aren't other Earth-like planets that have developed life. Now, the ability to communicate, of course, is limited by the speed of light. We don't know how long civilizations like ours live. There's the Fermi paradox. All of these potential sources of life, and we don't see any of them. What's the resolution of that? How do we understand it? Does it mean that once we develop a civilization that's able to communicate, that we only have a short lifetime because we use up all our resources? Is there some other explanation? Anyway, it's an interesting thing to think about.
Thank you for that.
Can I say something?
You certainly can. This is your show.
So first of all, I completely agree with Bob. I think that the chance that there is other life, and most likely other intelligent life in the universe, is extremely high. simply from looking at the story and how it evolves, there isn't any particular reason why the Earth would be the only planet in the universe that would have the conditions that are required to create life. But here is the interesting part of it. A lot of people wonder, if there is life, intelligent life in the universe, why haven't we seen it yet? Why haven't those intelligent people figured out a way to come to the Earth or communicate with us? And so the answer, one of the answers to this Fermi paradox is that there is something called the Great Filter. The Great Filter is something where when a civilization reaches a point kind of close to the point that we have reached, when they have the kind of technology that we have today, that there is an element that emerges in that civilization that essentially gets the civilization destroyed. And seeing the kinds of things that are going on today, that eventuality is not out of our sight at this point. And so the way that people answer that paradox is that they say that all the intelligent civilizations that had the option to possibly communicate with us and come here are now gone because they reached the point that we have, and they destroyed themselves. And I don't know whether this is really true or not. It's a speculation, but it's a challenge to us. Are we going to be the civilization that crosses that great filter with success? Or are we one of those civilizations that will fall prey to it and become another historical relic of the universe?
Mic drop? Very well said. You know, everyone has their own thoughts, right? Whether they're trained scientists or they're lay people, whether they're scientific or non-scientific, religious or non-religious. My father, a great man, he was in a conversation with another family member talking about the origins of the universe, and we would attend growing up St. Catherine's Church every Sunday, and another family member said, well, Dad, that's the Big Bang, right? And so my father said, well, you're right, but who made that happen? You know, so depending on one's perspective and where you come from, be it religious or non-religious, scientific or non-scientific, we have these grand mysteries. But the riddle is being solved by, frankly, geniuses. And they're in our presence, and they're in this room even today. I do want to ask, on cosmic microwave background, what is the macro, what's the overall significance of it for us moving forward? Historically, you've shared, but what's the future? With the cosmic microwave background, Dr. Wilson?
The cosmic microwave background, as I said, gives us the earliest picture of the universe. And if you go from there to here, or even look behind there, the universe has to have been started out in a very specific way, or we wouldn't exist. It's remarkably specific how it had to be started. There is a theory of what started it called inflation, and inflation would have left an interesting imprint on the cosmic microwave background called the B-wave polarization. Don't worry about the terminology. But there's an intense effort to find that. If that is found, that would give us a very good indication of how it all got started. But we're talking about physics that we have no way of checking, other than to say that it created our universe. You go back in the Big Bang far enough, and the energies are way higher than anything we can have on Earth. So we're really extrapolating physics to understand it.
Thank you. Dr. Kanwal?
Yes, I would like to like to add a little bit to that. So it's only when you dig deep into our cosmic story of evolution that you start to find out things that, to me, seem to have much more meaning than just the science aspect of it, which is incredible in the first place. So Bob is referring to a discovery that we have made that shows that the laws of physics that enabled the universe to evolve, starting from the Big Bang, seem to be fine-tuned. Think about the laws as having a whole bunch of knobs on them. It's like you have knobs on, let's say, an electric guitar to tune the electric guitar. It seems as if these knobs have been incredibly fine-tuned in such a way that the universe will eventually evolve self-aware life on its planets. This is an amazing discovery. Science doesn't have an explanation for this at this point in time, at least I believe that. And what it makes me think, and here I'm stepping out of known science, so I'm going into a little bit of speculation, but what it makes me feel is that there was a certain kind of intentionality in the universe, that the universe already had in mind the possibility of creating self-aware life on its planets even while that Big Bang was taking place. And to me, that is significant because it enables me to think in terms of this idea that there is meaning and purpose here, that science is not bereft of meaning and purpose, that it's not simply a set of random things that have been happening and we accidentally happen to come to this place, that there is something there that is pushing the universe towards that end. If you believe that, and many people do not, but if you believe that, then you start to understand that we have a responsibility, that there is a further future, that the evolution of the universe hasn't ended with us. There is more to come. And we have a hand in enabling the rest of the story after the 14 billion years that have already gone by. We have a hand in moving the story forward. And that is something to reflect and think about because I think it changes how we view the world and ourselves.
And thank you for that. I have a question for both of you. If you have a thought or you'd like to share, there's intelligence, organic intelligence, and inorganic, and this is somewhat tangential. But would you like to share any views or any quick thoughts you may have on a topic that's trending aggressively right now, which is artificial intelligence and ChatGPT-4, or the extent to which this is an incredible tool? Or any, if you wanted to share your views on that, or withhold them for when we come back, and they're going to come back again, we're going to have another meeting. Maybe we could do that in the future. Would you like to share anything about the incredible track of technology or technology in general, or to the extent you want to comment on AI?
Bob? Both of you. Go ahead, Bob.
I don't really have much to say about AI. I think it's an interesting question that we have our minds, which are basically computing machines, and we understand that we have a consciousness and feel that we have a purpose, and now we're creating these artificial machines that are in some ways similar, and it doesn't seem like they have a built-in purpose or a self-awareness. But I'm wondering if at some point they're going to show some evidence of self-awareness, because basically they're made up of similar sorts of things that we are, but they're organized very differently, I have to say. Anyway, I'm no expert in this field.
Thank you for your insight, Doctor.
Yes, just a couple of words, and I'm not an expert in AI either. But the ethical arguments that AI has generated are of a lot of interest to me. And I believe that they have relevance to our cosmic evolution story. Because if we believe that we are nothing other than a set of atoms that have been put together in a certain way so that we can consciously talk, think, reflect, and all of those things, then it would make sense that if you put the same kinds of things together to create an artificial intelligent robot, that you can reproduce a human being. My own personal thinking, and I can't really, kind of justify it, but it's my thinking from my understanding of how the cosmos has evolved. I think that we are more than a simple collection of molecules and atoms. And the fact that it has taken 14 billion years for the universe to go from a bunch of particles to we human beings here on that earth makes me think that no matter what we do here on the earth to create something that can think and talk and reflect like us, that we are not going to be able to do it, because there is a reason why it took 14 billion years, and there is something that comes of it, which we can artificially reproduce in some sense, but we are never going to get that same spirit, the zest for life that we have, which is beyond simply the mechanisms that exist. Biology can figure out exactly how our body works. We know all sorts of things. But what biology has not been able to figure out, and maybe never will, is what gives us that spirit, that zest that we have in life that we want to continue. And I think that is what you would never get in a robot, in my opinion. That's my opinion.
Thank you very much. And as we round the corner, we're going to open it up to questions, a few questions. And also, if there are simple questions, our guests will be here afterwards. But particularly interested in the folks, interested in everyone, of course, but the folks that are here with their astronomy background, science, Bellworks, the veterans, they may have something interesting to share or talk about. One item that's been galvanizing folks is preserving the Crawford Hill area and the horn antenna. I could just share with you briefly with comments I share with the Township Committee. It's not complicated from a government standpoint. My role is public sector management. There are land use techniques where you facilitate a transaction that's with the public entity, that's at fair market value, and you're able to direct the sole purchaser being that entity. You pay that fair market value. You may have a little bit of discussions about what is actually the fair market value. You buy the property, you own it, you control it, and that's it, and that's the end of it. I'm not trying to make that really simple, but this is really not complicated, and I share that with the governing body. Whether it's a multi-jurisdictional preservation solution like the Chase Tract that most folks are familiar with, 400 plus acres, that was set to be a multi-hundred planned retirement community that is now owned multi-jurisdictionally. It's cobbling together, in this case it was Monmouth Conservation Foundation, it was Green Acres Funding, SADC, State Agricultural Development, and also municipal and county. Similarly, with partnering with folks like Congressman Kim and his $4 million application, or the county that has tremendous assets to preserve it. And that's before you get to the state and other entities. And also, when you have a purchase price from the fellow, as I understand it was $3.8 million, if you're preserving historical artifacts to billions of planets and trillions of stars, a dollar here or there is really inconsequential. It's not consequential, is it? So there is a path forward, and we look forward to having a meeting when we're talking about the preserved Crawford Hill, the preserved horn antenna, and the folks that are involved. You have lay people here, students here, folks that are just coming in to see you, and also people that worked with you. They want to see this done, and I think you do have strong elected officials that'll make it happen, and we think that they have a passion for it as well. So I did want to, before we open it up for questions, I did want to just share a note of thanks to Ralph Zucker and his team, Inspired at Somerset Development, and I got to tell you, incredibly thankful for your family members who allow us to share your time, your spouses that are here today. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you for sharing your family's time and investing your time for our benefit and our edification, our knowledge. So with that, Jeannie, can we open it up for a handful of questions? If you have a thoughtful question that you'd like to share now, or something from the folks that are part of the historical team at Bellworks that you want to share with folks so you can help educate us as well. Yes, sir.
Yes, I have a quick question for either of the panelists. Can either of you share a little bit of your thoughts about dark matter, the nature and existence of dark matter? Quite a mystery.
Now, he got the best laugh. I'm trying the whole time, and here, just like that.
I'll say something, and then Bob is the expert physicist here. So dark matter is a mysterious thing. We know it's there because of its gravitational effect. There are, by the way, other theories that claim that you can reproduce what we have observed by things other than dark matter. But the mainstream idea is that there is something out there that does not emit or reflect light, which is why it can never be seen, which is why it's called dark matter. Hopefully, there's a lot of experiments going on right now to actually discover what it is. I'm certainly hopeful that maybe even in my lifetime, we might be able to find that. But the one thing that I would add is that the amount of dark matter, we know exactly how much dark matter it is, even though we don't know what it is, we know exactly how much of it is in the universe, and it's a lot of it. It's actually about 5 times the amount of ordinary matter that we have. So there's a lot of dark matter there. But what's amazing to me is the amount of dark matter in the universe is just right in order for the expansion rate of our universe to be such that the universe would not collapse, the universe would not expand too rapidly so that it would actually blow apart and nothing would be able to happen. And also it's just right so that the universe would not collapse on itself and become one big black hole. And that is incredible, that the amount of actually dark matter and dark energy as well are just in the right amount for our universe to be the way it is, for life to develop.
Thank you. Dr. Wilson?
That's a very good explanation, especially of the fine-tuning of our universe. But I would say that since we don't know what dark matter and dark energy are, which make up most of the universe, well more than 99% of the universe, our present theories may not be correct.
And the mysteries continue.
Mysteries
Thank you so much. Yes?
Yes, I just read something on using the moon as a base of operations for examining further deeper into the universe, where you have some benefits of being on the moon in certain areas of the moon which are more easily used. Any thoughts on the use?
I think what you might be referring to is the possibility of setting up a telescope on the far side of the moon. That is a very special place because it essentially, the body of the moon will basically allow us to blot out a lot of the things so that we can look at the sky in the darkest possible way, and that enables us to see things that we otherwise may not be able to see. It's an idea. I don't think that it has yet been fully planned out.
Thank you. A question from a student, maybe? Wonderful. Hi.
Hello. So I've been reading about the work that you both have done, Dr. Kanwal and Dr. Wilson. It's incredibly impressive and just inspiring, especially to someone like myself who's very interested in astronomy and physics. Is there any way that a junior like myself at Holmdel High School will be able to get involved in the research of astronomy and physics in my time?
Bob, you want to say something about that? Are you thinking in terms of getting an internship somewhere to work on? Is that what you're thinking here?
Oh yeah, sure. That'd be amazing.
Yeah. I'm not the best person to answer that question, but I would bet that if you start looking around, that there are places, maybe not so much in Brookdale College, which doesn't really do a lot of research, but if you look at Rutgers, if you look at Stevens Institute of Technology and some of these other universities, there's a lot going on. And if you are able to get in touch with the physics department, they might be just very happy to have you work with somebody there. Absolutely.
Thank you. Any other questions for now? Okay. We'll have a couple more, and then we'll wrap. Thank you. Hey, welcome.
Yes, this is a follow-on to the dark matter, dark energy question that was previously asked. Everything is still in place. 60 years we've had the Big Bang Theory. The only mystery, as I understand it at this point, is why is it expanding at a faster rate now than one would intuitively expect? You'd expect it to slow down a little bit as opposed to speeding up. Do you have an idea? Oh, there's one other thing, too. InfoAge, we do have a radio telescope, and we do take volunteers out there. Belmar.
Oh, wonderful.
Project Diana site.
Wonderful.
Okay. Thank you.
So
Thank you.
for a quick answer to your question, it is the accelerating expansion of the universe that cued us in to the existence of dark energy. It is because of that that we have speculated that it is dark energy that is causing our universe to expand at a faster and faster rate. We don't know what it is.
People think it is Einstein's cosmological constant. However, if a physicist estimates what size the cosmological constant should be, it's 10 to the power 120 times too small.
It's considered to be the most embarrassing fact of physics that we're not able to explain it that way.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Yes. My question is a little bit rudimental in the sense that a theory is a theory. It's a story that is based on the previous experience and so forth and so on. Now, including Big Bang is a theory. So, and what happens is that as new evidence appears, theories can modify. Like, for instance, Newtonian, the mechanics changed as a result of going to close to the speed of light, that it collapsed, and we had to have a new theory, relativity. When you go inside the atom, you see that all those mechanics collapse, and you have a new theory. My question is that Big Bang is also a theory, and nobody has been there in this audience to witness what happened during the Big Bang. It's theory. Is there a way in the future, within the framework of our thinking, that these theories are modified, including the Big Bang theory?
Well, I think that's partly what I was getting at when I said we don't understand more than 99% of the universe, is that we may have to modify our theories. There is actually a remarkable fit if you take inflation tuned with 6 parameters. There's a remarkable fit of that to the picture of the universe that the cosmic microwave background gives us. It's a curve that looks something like that, and the dots, the experimental dots, go right along the curve. So that is a remarkable fit, but it requires very specific setup. And maybe some other theory would come up with a similar thing, but there is a remarkable ability to calculate from our earliest evidence to the present universe and come up with something with the present laws of physics that matches our present universe.
One quick addition to what Bob said. In science, everything is a theory. That is how science is. What you do is you hypothesize something and you keep getting evidence to figure out to what degree you can have confidence over it. So your confidence level keeps increasing, but it's always a theory. The Big Bang theory, because of what Bob and Arno did that day, is now a theory with a very high level of confidence. And it may change in its detail over time, but the fact that our universe started as a hot, dense thing is something that I don't believe is ever going to change.
Thank you. We have time for one more question?
Yes, we have time for a question over here, but before the last question, whoever wants to sign the petition, Karen, raise your hand. Karen Strickland is over there. That's the petition to show your support to preserve the horn.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Are we on?
Yes.
Yeah, Jim Harbison. I was a fellow Bell Labs person working at about the same time as Bob, and I want to thank you, Bob, for your sharing your stories here. That's
You're welcome.
I think and I wanted to point out, especially for the students here, that the most important part about that story was not that they discovered the Big Bang. It was cleaning out the poop inside them. Doing science involves a lot of hard work. In other words, you just heard the big thing when all of a sudden Dickie got off the phone and they figured out it was the Big Bang. But you and Arno spent a lot of time not just cleaning out getting those amplifiers to work a little better, working a little bit very quietly. And that's what science is all about. The New York Times doesn't cover that. But if you're a aspiring student and you're interested in getting into science, that's the part that's exciting. It's very much like the auto mechanic that's trying to figure out what's not working in the car. When you were trying to figure out what wasn't working in that traveling wave mazer, that was very similar to that kind of thought there that way. And that's, to me, what was the exciting part of the work that I did. And I'll bet it was the exciting part that you had. In fact, if it was not the exciting part, you wouldn't have been able to go through all those years of doing that there that way. So I want to thank you for that.
Well, thank you.
Thank you very much. And it really is, isn't it, about finding your passion? Because it's the everyday work, the everyday toils, the everyday troubles and tribulations that you go through with whatever your career path is or your life path is the piece that people don't see. And all that work, all that grind, all those late hours and those frustrations before you get to those grand discoveries that have frankly helped shape our planet and our worldview of that planet. We've heard tremendous wisdom today, tremendous inspiring wisdom today. We have the folks that are here, I've found we've all been riveted to your words and what your history, and then what you're currently teaching over in Brookdale, and all of the different interesting things. What I'd like to do before we close out is is to share from each of you for the group that's here, and you have scientists, you have students, you have folks that are young and younger in different walks of life. What would be you shared your wisdom, but what would be your words of wisdom as we close out this fantastic meeting, and for folks to think about as they leave today that relates to either the topic or how the topic has evolved your own worldview? If we can start with you, Dr. Kanwal, and then Dr. Wilson, if you don't mind.
My little word of wisdom here would be stay curious. Don't let your curiosity die in this world of know everything, in this arrogant world where we can go to Google and get every question answered. Let nothing affect your curiosity. It was my curiosity that led me to all of the interests and the work that I have done. And I think it is this curiosity that I believe will never be reproduced in a robot that has AI in it. It's special to us.
Very well said.
Thank you very much. Would you like to share anything? Want to thank so much Dr. Wilson, Dr. Kanwal, your spouses for being here today, your time and your family's interest in sharing your words with us today in the incredible Bell Works, the vision of Ralph Zucker and inspired at Somerset Development. The block is open, as you can see. So thank you very much, everyone, for being here. And please, the audience, give yourself a round of applause, and we're going to do a group photo after. Thank you, everyone. Oh, if you'd like to join us for a group photo, please come on